Have you ever picked up a plant at the nursery that looked absolutely perfect, imagined it thriving on your porch, only to watch it struggle, droop, or die later on? I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. Over the years, I've learned that not every beautiful flower is suited for growing in containers. Some outgrow their space too quickly, require constant attention, or become vulnerable to pests and stress. In this video, I'll go through 8 flowers I regret planting in pots, what didn't work, what I tried to fix, and what I would grow instead. 1. Peonies. Peonies are iconic flowers, large, lush, and incredibly fragrant. Their blooms are instantly recognizable, ranging from simple forms to full layered flowers that resemble soft pom-poms. They come in a wide range of colors, from white and pale pink to deep reds and even yellow shades. Some varieties release a rich, sweet fragrance that fills the air, making them a symbol of beauty and elegance in gardens. They are also incredibly long-lived. In the right conditions, peonies can grow and bloom for decades, becoming stronger and more productive each year. They perform best in climates with cold winters, as they require a chilling period to properly form buds. When planted in the ground, they establish deep root systems and reward gardeners with reliable blooms season after season. Even after flowering, their foliage remains attractive. The dense green leaves add structure throughout summer, and in autumn they can take on shades of red or bronze before the plant goes dormant for winter. However, despite all their strengths, peonies are not well suited for containers. Their roots are large and fleshy, designed to grow deep in the soil. In pots, they become restricted, stressed by temperature changes, and often fail to store enough energy for future blooms. They also take years to mature, and growing them in containers slows that process even more. When they do flower, their large blooms can make them top-heavy, causing stems to flop or even tipping over the entire container. Caring for them in pots requires oversized containers, excellent drainage, and careful watering. But even with ideal care, they rarely perform as well as they do in the ground. Peonies also dislike being disturbed, so repotting or dividing them becomes difficult and stressful when grown in containers. They are absolutely worth growing, but in garden beds, not pots. If you're looking for a similar lush, romantic look in containers, better options include double begonias, ranunculus, dwarf roses, or compact dahlias. These provide the same visual impact without the challenges. In the end, peonies are stunning and timeless, but they're one of the plants I regret trying to grow in containers. They're a reminder that some plants simply belong in the ground. 2. Dahlias. Dahlias are among the most striking flowers of late summer, offering an incredible range of shapes and colors, from spiky forms to massive dinner plate blooms. They're eye-catching and dramatic, and I once imagined them filling my patio with color. But growing them in containers proved to be far more difficult than expected. The first challenge is their size. Even varieties labeled as compact can grow much larger than anticipated, and often reaching several feet in height and requiring constant support. Larger types are even more demanding, with heavy blooms that weigh down stems or cause containers to become unstable. Their tubers also present problems. In the ground, they have space to expand naturally, but in pots, they quickly become crowded, which can lead to poor growth or even rot. Repotting them each season is time-consuming and often frustrating. Dahlias are also heavy feeders and require frequent watering. In hot weather, containers dry out quickly, sometimes needing water more than once a day. Missing a watering can cause wilting, while overwatering can lead to root issues. Nutrients also wash out of the soil easily, so regular feeding is necessary to keep them healthy. Pests and diseases add another layer of difficulty. In containers, where airflow is limited and plants are more stressed, issues like spider mites, aphids, thrips, and powdery mildew can become more severe. And then there's the seasonal maintenance, digging up tubers, storing them properly, and replanting each year, which adds even more work. While dahlias are undeniably beautiful, growing them in pots often requires more effort than it's worth. In garden beds, they perform far better, growing larger, flowering more reliably, and facing fewer problems. If you still want to grow dahlias in containers, it's best to choose true dwarf varieties like the Gallery or Happy Single Series. But larger types, especially dinner plate dahlias, can quickly become more trouble than they're worth. For me, they remain one of the biggest lessons in container gardening. Sometimes the most beautiful plants are simply better suited to the ground. 3. Bearded iris. Bearded irises are some of the most striking flowers you can grow. Their blooms look almost like living artwork. Velvety petals in an incredible range of colors, often accented by the signature beard that gives them their name. From pure white and soft pastels to deep purples, warm golds, and intricate bicolor patterns, they bring a sense of elegance that few plants can match. When they bloom in spring, they can completely transform a garden, producing multiple flowers on each stalk over several weeks, and some varieties even offer a second round of blooms later in the season. Even outside of flowering, they remain visually appealing. Their upright, sword-like leaves form dense clumps that add structure and texture throughout the growing season. Over time, these clumps expand, creating bold architectural shapes that enhance garden beds. However, despite all their beauty, bearded irises are not well suited for containers. Their thick rhizomes are designed to spread horizontally and sit close to the soil surface, where they benefit from sunlight and airflow. In pots, it's difficult to recreate these conditions. Too much soil covering the rhizomes can lead to rot, while too little can leave them exposed and unstable. On top of that, containers heat up and cool down much faster than garden soil, which adds additional stress. In my experience, irises grown in pots often struggle. They may produce plenty of leaves but few flowers, and even if they bloom initially, performance tends to decline over time. They also require division every few years to stay healthy, a simple task in the ground, but awkward and risky in containers. Drainage presents another challenge. Irises need well-draining soil, but in pots, moisture levels are harder to balance. Water can either collect at the bottom or dry out too quickly, leading to root problems or weak growth. They also need plenty of sun, especially warmth around the rhizomes, which containers don't always provide consistently. Their height adds yet another complication. Flower stalks can reach 2 to 3 feet tall, and combined with heavy blooms, they easily become top-heavy in pots, requiring constant support. In contrast, bearded irises perform beautifully in the ground. With sunlight, space, and well-drained soil, they multiply easily and bloom reliably for years. If you want a similar look in containers, better choices include dwarf irises, gladiolus, dwarf dahlias, or salvias, plants that provide height and color without the same challenges. In the end, bearded irises are stunning and easy to grow in garden beds, but in containers they often become more trouble than they're worth. 4. Hybrid tea. Roses. Hybrid tea roses are among the most iconic and admired flowers. With their long stems and large, perfectly shaped blooms, they represent classic beauty, often seen in bouquets in romantic gardens. Their color range is vast, from deep reds and soft whites to yellows, oranges, and complex blends. Many varieties also have a strong, captivating fragrance. At first, they seem like the perfect plant for containers, something you can keep close to enjoy their beauty and scent. But in reality, they can be extremely challenging to grow in pots. The main issue is root space. Hybrid tea roses have vigorous root systems that need room to grow. In the ground, they can spread freely and access water and nutrients. In containers, they quickly become restricted, leading to stress, weaker growth, and fewer blooms. Even in large pots, they often struggle after the first season. Watering is another constant challenge. These roses require consistent moisture but don't tolerate overly wet soil. In containers, soil dries out quickly, especially in summer. This often means watering once or even multiple times a day. Miss a watering, and the plant wilts. Overwater, and root problems can develop. Feeding adds even more work. Hybrid teas are heavy feeders, and nutrients in pots wash out quickly with frequent watering. To keep them healthy, you need regular fertilizing, turning care into a continuous cycle of watering, feeding, pruning, and deadheading. Pests and diseases are also a major issue. Roses are prone to problems like aphids, spider mites, and fungal diseases. In containers where plants are more stressed and airflow is limited, these issues can become even worse. Managing them often requires constant attention. Winter adds another layer of difficulty. Hybrid tea roses are less cold hardy, and in pots, their roots are exposed to freezing temperatures. Without proper protection, they can easily be lost during winter. When grown in the ground, however, hybrid tea roses can be spectacular. With proper care, they produce repeated flushes of blooms and thrive in a more stable environment. If you want roses in containers, better options include patio roses, miniature varieties, or shrub roses. These are more compact, adaptable, and far easier to maintain. While hybrid tea roses are undeniably beautiful, growing them in containers often requires more effort than it's worth. For me, they remain a lesson that some plants are simply better suited to the ground, where they can truly thrive. 5. Lilies. Lilies are among the most striking flowers you can grow. Their tall stems and large, trumpet-shaped blooms create an almost dramatic, elegant presence that has made them symbols of beauty for centuries. There's incredible variety, from the bold, colorful Asiatic lilies to the richly scented Oriental types, as well as trumpet lilies and hybrids that combine multiple traits. In garden beds, they stand out effortlessly, adding height and visual impact each summer. It's easy to imagine bringing that beauty closer, growing them in containers on a patio where you can fully enjoy their flowers and fragrance. And at first, it can feel like the perfect idea. The bulbs sprout quickly, stems rise fast, and the blooms can be just as impressive as those in the ground. But after that initial success, the challenges begin to show. One of the main issues is their size. Lilies are naturally tall plants, often reaching from 2 to 6 feet, depending on the variety. In a container, this height becomes a problem. The plants quickly become top-heavy, and even a light wind or rain can cause the pot to tip over. Supporting them with stakes helps, but it often feels like you're constantly trying to control something that simply wants to grow freely. Their growth cycle adds another complication. After blooming, lilies go dormant. In the ground, bulbs remain safely underground, protected and ready to return next season. In containers, however, this dormancy leaves behind empty, unattractive pots for long periods. You either have to store the bulbs or accept that the container will sit unused. Even with proper storage, bulbs often weaken over time and don't perform as well in future seasons. Watering can also be difficult to manage. Lilies prefer evenly moist soil but are very sensitive to excess water. In containers, it's hard to maintain that balance. Soil dries out quickly, yet water can also accumulate at the bottom, leading to rot. Even with careful attention, bulbs can deteriorate much faster than they would in the ground. Pests and diseases become more noticeable in pots as well. Issues like lily beetles or fungal diseases can spread quickly in confined spaces, and plants often struggle to recover due to added stress. Even with regular care, lilies in containers can start to look weak or damaged as the season progresses. Another surprising factor is their fragrance. While many lilies, especially Oriental types, have a beautiful scent, it can become overpowering in small enclosed spaces like patios. What feels pleasant at first can quickly become too intense. Winter is another challenge. In garden beds, bulbs are insulated by the soil, but in containers they are exposed to freezing temperatures. Without proper protection, bulbs can be damaged or lost entirely, requiring extra effort to move or insulate pots. In contrast, lilies perform far better in the ground. They establish more naturally, multiply over time, and produce stronger displays each year. They integrate well into garden beds, adding structure, color, and fragrance without requiring constant attention. If you still want lilies in containers, dwarf varieties are a much better choice. They stay more compact, are less prone to falling over, and adapt better to limited space. But traditional tall lilies often bring more challenges than rewards when grown in pots. While lilies are undeniably beautiful, trying to grow them in containers taught me a clear lesson. Some plants simply thrive best when given the space and conditions they were meant for.